The sky over Baghdad was a chaotic mess of smoke, tracers, hostile fire. It was April 7, 2003, during the height of the invasion of Iraq. Captain Kim Campbell was flying her A-10 Thunderbolt II, call sign Killer Chick, on a close air support mission. Her objective was to protect American ground troops. The fighting on the streets below was fierce. The A-10, a plane built for exactly this kind of dangerous down-in-the-mud work, descended into the fray. Captain Campbell lined up her Warthog for a rocket attack. She unleashed a volley of rockets. The world suddenly exploded around her. Her aircraft was rocked by a massive impact. An enemy surface-to-air missile had found its mark. The cockpit filled with warning lights, alarms blared. A quick glance over her shoulder revealed the horrifying truth. Her jet was heavily damaged, trailing smoke, hydraulic fluid. Despite the catastrophic damage, the A-10 refused to die. The explosion had knocked out all of her hydraulics, rendering normal flight controls useless. For most modern fighters, this is a death sentence. Pilots would eject. But the A-10 is not like most fighters. It was designed with a redundant manual reversion flight control system, a series of mechanical cables that act as a backup. Captain Campbell remembered her training and switched to manual mode. The controls were sluggish and heavy, like wrestling a bear, but they worked. For over an hour she wrestled the wounded beast through the sky, manually flying her crippled Warthog back toward base. She had no landing gear, no flaps, no speed brakes. Every movement required immense physical effort. The jet was barely controllable, but it stayed in the air. Against all odds, Captain Campbell successfully landed the aircraft, bringing her billion-dollar asset and herself home safely. Her story became legendary, a perfect encapsulation of the A-10's ruggedness, and the reason why, 2 decades later, this old plane still holds a sacred place in the hearts of the U.S. military. The A-10 Warthog was not born in a sterile design lab focused on speed or stealth. It was conceived from the brutal lessons learned in the jungles of Vietnam. During that conflict, the USAF had no dedicated close air support aircraft. High-speed jets like the F-4 Phantom were ill-suited. They were just too fast to spot and engage targets in dense jungle. Their loiter time was short, and they were vulnerable to ground fire. The job often fell to older propeller-driven aircraft like the A-1 Skyraider. It proved surprisingly effective, but it was not a long-term solution. The need for a new attack plane became painfully obvious. The Air Force needed something that could fly low and slow. It needed to absorb massive punishment and keep flying. It needed to carry huge loads of bombs, rockets, and most importantly, a powerful cannon to shred armor. This mission was dangerous, dirty, and unglamorous. Survivability was paramount. The pilot had to be protected, the engines had to be shielded, and flight systems needed backups for their backups. In the late 1960s, this became the Attack Experimental, the AX program. The requirements were stark. They called for a simple, rugged, survivable jet with a massive 30 mm rotary cannon. Long loiter time was essential to patrol and support ground troops. It had to operate from short, unimproved airstrips near the front. This wasn't an elegant dogfighter in the skies. It was a flying gun platform to get into the mud with infantry. 2 companies entered, Northrop and Fairchild Republic. Northrop's YA-9 contended, but Fairchild's YA-10 captured the spirit. The YA-10 was unconventional, even ugly to some, with straight wings, a twin tail, and engines mounted high on the fuselage. Every choice addressed close air support realities. After a competitive fly-off, the Air Force selected the YA-10 in 1973. It was designated the A-10 Thunderbolt II, but it would soon earn a more fitting nickname, the Warthog. The A-10 Warthog is a marvel of purposeful engineering, a machine where form brutally follows function. It is quite simply an aircraft designed around its main weapon. The central component of the A-10 is not its airframe or its engines, but the G8U-8/A Avenger, a 7-barrel Gatling-style autocannon. The gun itself is massive, measuring over 19 feet long and weighing more than 4,000 pounds with a full ammunition drum. The entire aircraft was literally built to accommodate this monstrous weapon, with the cannon making up about 16% of the Warthog's total empty weight. The sheer power of the GAU-8 is difficult to comprehend. It fires enormous 30mm armor-piercing incendiary rounds at a blistering rate of 3,900 rounds per minute. When the pilot squeezes the trigger, the gun emits a sound that has become legendary on the battlefield, a terrifying brrrr. The recoil force from the cannon is immense, over 10,000 pounds, roughly equivalent to the thrust of one of the A-10's own engines. The gun is mounted slightly off-center to ensure the firing barrel is always on the aircraft's centerline, preventing the recoil from pushing the plane's nose off target. Beyond its cannon, the A-10's design is a masterclass in practicality for the close air support role. Its large, straight wings provide excellent lift at low speeds and low altitudes, allowing the pilot to maneuver effectively in complex terrain and accurately identify targets. This design also enables short takeoffs and landings. The pilot sits far forward in the cockpit, affording an excellent, almost panoramic view of the battlefield below. The placement of the two General Electric TF-34 turbofan engines is another piece of brilliant survivability-focused design. They are mounted high on the rear fuselage, above the tailplanes. This shields them from ground fire from many angles and reduces their infrared signature. The engines are also spaced far apart, so a single hit is unlikely to disable both. Every element of the A-10, from its wings to its engine placement, was meticulously planned. If the GAU-8 Avenger cannon is the A-10's sword, then its incredible durability is its shield. The Warthog was built to take heavy fire and keep on fighting, a concept almost alien to modern delicate jets. The core of this survivability is the pilot's cockpit, encased in a protective titanium bathtub. That armored tub weighs about 1,200 pounds, made of titanium plates up to 1.5 inches thick. It can stop armor-piercing rounds up to 23 mm and even offers protection versus some 57 mm shells. This protection philosophy extends across the whole airframe. Fuel tanks are self-sealing, filled with foam to suppress fires. Flight controls are triple redundant. There are 2 hydraulic systems, but Captain Kim Campbell proved it can be flown without them thanks to a manual steel cable backup. Those cables let the pilot physically move control surfaces, saving planes and lives. The A-10 is, essentially, a flying fortress built to bring pilots home. Engines are placed for protection and built to be resilient. They can run damaged and are simple to repair or replace in the field. The landing gear shows the same rugged thinking. Wheels retract into pods under the wings but stay partially exposed. If gear fails to deploy, pilots can belly land on the wheels, minimizing fuselage damage. It's a low-tech solution that preserves pilot and plane. Redundancy and toughness have been proven time and again in combat. A-10s have returned with huge wing sections missing, with an engine destroyed, with hundreds of bullet holes peppering their fuselage, with tails shredded by missile fragments. One famous A-10 had its nose almost sheared off, yet still made it back. No other U.S. aircraft soaks up punishment and keeps flying. The Warthog is more than a plane. It's a flying tank built to endure war. While the A-10 was designed to counter a massive Soviet tank invasion in Europe that, well, never actually came, it found its true calling in the deserts of the Middle East. Operation Desert Storm in 1991 was really the Warthog's grand debut on the world stage, and honestly, its performance was nothing short of spectacular. The vast open terrain of Iraq and Kuwait turned out to be a perfect hunting ground for the A-10. Iraqi armored divisions, which were once thought to be pretty formidable, found themselves utterly defenseless against the Warthog's onslaught. The combination of the GAU-8 Avenger cannon and the AGM-65 Maverick missile proved to be a devastatingly effective tank-killing combination. A-10s flew thousands of sorties during the conflict, delivering a staggering amount of ordnance. They were credited with destroying over 900 Iraqi tanks, 2,000 other military vehicles, and 1,200 artillery pieces. This was far more than any other aircraft platform in the coalition. The Warthog's ability to loiter over the battlefield for long periods, identify targets, and engage them with precision was, honestly, unmatched. While faster jets like the F-16 flew higher altitude missions, the A-10s were down in the thick of it, providing direct support to coalition ground forces and systematically dismantling the Iraqi army piece by piece. Continuing previous narration, the Warthog's reputation for toughness was also, really cemented during Desert Storm. A-10s sustained significant battle damage but consistently returned to base. One A-10, flown by Captain Paul Johnson, was hit by an Iraqi surface-to-air missile that tore a massive hole in its right wing. Despite the extensive damage, Captain Johnson was able to fly his crippled aircraft for nearly an hour back to his forward operating base and land safely. Another A-10 pilot, Captain Robert Swain, suffered 2 missile hits, but managed to shoot down an Iraqi helicopter with his GAU-8 cannon before flying his battered plane home. These stories became, well, pretty commonplace. The A-10 proved that it could not only dish out incredible punishment but also take it. Its performance silenced many critics who had previously argued that the slow-moving jet would be obsolete on a modern battlefield. Instead, the Warthog emerged from the Gulf War as a bona fide legend. It had proven itself to be the most effective tank-killing aircraft in history and an invaluable asset for any ground campaign. Its success in Desert Storm ensured its place in the Air Force's inventory for decades to come, creating a legacy that would be, honestly, very hard to replace. Following its stunning success in Desert Storm, the A-10 Warthog continued to prove its worth in every major conflict the United States became involved in. From the Balkans in the 1990s, the mountains of Afghanistan, the streets of Iraq, and the global war on terror, the A-10 has been the go-to platform for close air support. In these asymmetric conflicts, the enemy often wasn't a column of tanks but small groups of insurgents hiding among civilian populations. This new type of warfare made the A-10's unique capabilities even more valuable. Its ability to fly low and slow was critical for positive identification of targets, preventing tragic friendly fire incidents and civilian casualties. In Afghanistan, the Warthog became a guardian angel for troops on the ground. The rugged, mountainous terrain made it difficult for ground forces to see the enemy, but the A-10, circling overhead, had a bird's-eye view. Pilots could stay on station for hours, communicating directly with Joint Terminal Attack Controllers on the ground to provide precise, on-demand fire support. A burst from the GAU-8 cannon could neutralize an enemy ambush from a ridgeline. A precisely guided bomb could destroy a fortified compound. For soldiers pinned down and taking fire, the sound of an A-10 arriving overhead was the sound of salvation. One of the most famous stories from this era involves then Staff Sergeant Ronald Schurer, a Green Beret medic. In 2008, his team was pinned down by heavy enemy fire in the Shock Valley of Afghanistan. Wounded and surrounded, the team was in a desperate situation. Multiple attempts to provide air support with faster jets and helicopters had failed due to the intense ground fire and difficult terrain. Finally, an A-10 arrived on the scene. The pilot, flying with incredible skill and bravery, made multiple low-level passes, strafing the enemy positions just yards away from the American soldiers, finally breaking the ambush and allowing for the evacuation of the wounded. This story, for which Schurer would later receive the Medal of Honor, is just one of countless examples. The A-10's psychological impact on the enemy is as powerful as its physical destruction. Insurgents learned to fear the distinctive silhouette and sound of the Warthog. Its presence alone was often enough to make enemy fighters break contact and retreat into hiding. This allowed ground troops to maneuver, evacuate their wounded, and regain the initiative. The A-10 was not just a weapon, it was a lifeline, a constant and reassuring presence for the men and women fighting on the front lines. Despite its legendary status and proven track record, the A-10 Warthog has been on the United States Air Force's chopping block for decades. The push to retire the aircraft is rooted in budgetary concerns and a strategic shift towards more advanced multi-role aircraft. The argument, often made by Air Force leadership, is that maintaining a single-mission aircraft like the A-10 is inefficient. They contend that modern jets like the F-16, F-15E, and especially the new F-35 Lightning II can perform the close air support mission adequately, while also handling roles such as air-to-air combat and electronic warfare. The primary proposed replacement for the A-10 has been the F-35. Proponents argue the F-35's advanced sensors, data linking capabilities, and stealth technology make it more survivable and effective. They envision the F-35 identifying targets from a safe altitude, staying far from the reach of ground fire, and destroying them with precision-guided munitions. This, they say, is smarter and safer than the A-10 going low and close. However, this high-tech vision has clashed with the gritty reality of close air support. Critics, ground troops, and A-10 pilots argue the F-35 is unsuited for CAS. It's just too fast, has much shorter loiter time, and carries a smaller internal weapons load. Its 25mm cannon holds far less ammo than the A-10's GAU-8. Most importantly, the F-35 isn't designed to take damage. Its complex systems and stealth coatings are delicate and expensive to repair. An F-35 flying low into small arms fire is unthinkable, yet that is precisely where the A-10 thrives. Every time the Air Force sets a retirement date, resistance comes from the United States Army, the Marine Corps, and powerful members of Congress. They argue no other aircraft provides the same responsive, persistent, visually verifiable support to troops in contact. Comparative tests show the A-10 can operate in weather that grounds the F-35 and can deliver ordnance more quickly and effectively in some scenarios. Ultimately, retirement attempts fail because no replacement has proven it can do the Warthog's dirty job as well as the Warthog itself. To truly understand why the A-10 Warthog endures, listen not to the generals in the Pentagon, but listen to the soldiers, Marines on the ground. For the infantryman, the ground pounder, the A-10 is more than an aircraft, a symbol of hope and a ferocious protector. When a platoon is pinned down by enemy fire, running low on ammunition, taking casualties, the world shrinks to a terrifyingly small piece of ground. In those desperate moments, the distinctive sound of the A-10's twin engines cuts through the air. It's the most beautiful sound, the cavalry arriving. Testimonies from veterans of Iraq and Afghanistan are filled with reverence. They recount moments when all hope seemed lost until an A-10 appeared overhead. The pilots, hog drivers, are praised for courage and precision. They're willing to fly dangerously low, risking themselves to protect troops. That shared risk builds an unbreakable bond between pilots and soldiers. Infantry trusts these pilots because they're down in the fight with them. Seeing the Warthog circling, seeing it line up for an attack run, seeing the impact of its cannon fire. That's crucial to trust. Unlike a distant high-flying jet dropping invisible bombs, the A-10's visible presence boosts morale and terrifies the enemy. The sight alone can break an enemy's will to fight. It's a visceral form of support no other platform replicates. That sentiment becomes political power. When retirement is announced, the outcry is immediate. They write letters, make calls to their representatives, share stories on social media. They argue that removing the A-10 would betray the infantry. That advocacy is perhaps the single most important reason the A-10 Warthog continues to fly. Today is September 20th, 2025. The A-10 Thunderbolt II, an aircraft that first flew over half a century ago, is still an active and vital part of the United States Air Force. Its continued service is a testament to a simple, undeniable truth. It does one job, close air support, better than any other aircraft ever built. The Warthog refuses to die because the need for a tough, powerful, reliable flying gun platform has not disappeared. In an age of stealth, cyber warfare, hypersonic missiles, there is still a fundamental need for an aircraft that can get low, get slow, and protect troops in a firefight. The legacy of the A-10 is written in the stories of the lives it has saved. It is the story of Captain Kim Campbell wrestling her crippled jet back to base. It is the story of soldiers in the Shock Valley being saved from certain death by a courageous pilot. It is the story of thousands of Iraqi tanks turned into smoldering wrecks in the desert. The A-10 is not beloved because it is fast, beautiful, or technologically advanced. It is beloved because it is brutally effective and unbelievably tough. It is a tool built for the most difficult and dangerous job in air combat, and it has performed that job flawlessly for decades. The Air Force has invested heavily in keeping the Warthog relevant, upgrading its wings, engines, avionics to extend its service life well into the 2030s. These upgrades ensure that the old Hog can integrate with modern digital battlefield networks while retaining the rugged, analog characteristics that make it so special. This hybrid of old-school toughness and new-school tech makes the A-10 more lethal than ever. It is a recognition that while the nature of warfare evolves, the need for overwhelming firepower in support of ground troops is a constant. The A-10 provides that firepower in a way no other aircraft can. Ultimately, the A-10 Warthog endures because it is a promise. It is a promise from the sky to the ground, a commitment that help is on the way. It represents a design philosophy that prioritizes the pilot's survival and the success of the ground mission above all else. For as long as there are soldiers, Marines fighting on the ground, there will be a need for a guardian angel in the sky. And for the foreseeable future, that guardian angel will continue to have the unmistakable shape, the terrifying sound, and the unbreakable spirit of the A-10 Warthog, the plane that simply refuses to die.